All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today we are in a strange named town in New Mexico called Truth or Consequences. And we are at the Geronimo Museum here. It's a really nice little museum. It's one I visited several years ago. And we're going to be divided out kind of into three different areas. Our first host is going to be Anne, and she's going to take us through kind of the history of the town and what happened here and why it has the name that it has. And then we're going to catch up with Mike, who is a geologist and is going to talk to us a little bit about the geology in the area. And then we're going to catch up with Jeff, who is going to talk to us about their world-class arrowhead and pottery artifact part of the museum. So right now we're going to start off with Anne, and she's going to take us through the history of the town and some of the reason as to why it is called Truth or Consequences. Welcome, Anne, to Where Am I to Go podcast.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're going to tell us all about Truth or Consequences.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a long story.
It's a long story?
Yes, we have a whole room dedicated to it, so we can go in there and
Okay.
be reminded of what it is.
Okay.
As the sign says, a man, which was Ralph Edwards, and a show, which was Truth or Consequences, and a city, which turned its name into Truth or Consequences.
Okay, so there was a show called Truth or Consequences.
Yes.
Okay. And who is Ralph Edwards?
He was the man that was the host of the Truth or Consequences show in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles?
Yes.
Not in Truth or Consequences? No. Okay.
No. And he came to Truth or Consequences. He wanted a town to change its name for one day so he could promote it and broadcast a show from here. And he chose Truth or Consequences because of our hot mineral waters and because of the children's hospital that we had here. And he chose it from several cities in New Mexico. And he came and set it up to bring the show here. Well, the people decided they just wanted to change the name all the time to Truth or Consequences.
Really?
And so they voted to change it. And on April the 1st of 1940, I believe, they changed the name. And then they had a big fiesta.
Oh, really?
And celebrated it. And Ralph came for 50 years. He was only going to come that one time, but he came for 50 years. And he always brought famous stars with him. So we saw almost all the famous stars from Hollywood. They would come and stay the weekend of the fiesta.
Really?
Yes.
That is so cool. Okay, so now what was the basis of Truth or Consequences? Was it a game show?
It was a game show where they tricked people and they did all kinds of funny stunts and so forth.
Kind of like a candid camera thing, or?
Well, no, it was, I don't know what it's like today. The contestants would go up on the stage and it was kind of like you used to play Truth or Consequences. If you didn't tell the truth, you had to pay the consequences.
Okay.
And so you would have to do something, and then you'd get something pulled on you or a stunt that. And he always had a Truth or Consequences show.
Okay.
At every fiesta. The first one was the only one that was nationally broadcast.
Okay. And so with Truth or Consequences, you said it started like in the 40s. So that's kind of like when television very first started.
Yes, it was.
And how long did it run?
Oh gosh.
I think I remember it when I was a kid, like in the 60s, but I don't.
I think it was probably maybe into the 70s.
Okay.
Because we we had the stars like Klinger that came.
Okay, from MASH.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe maybe it wasn't going international, but I think it was still well known then in the 70s.
Okay.
80s.
And when did he quit coming here?
Oh gosh, let's see. 2000.
Really? Wow.
I can't remember the last one. It's in here somewhere.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's quite the story. And so the town changed its name
Yes.
permanently. And what was the name of the town beforehand?
Hot Springs.
Hot Springs.
And that was because we had the hot mineral waters that people came to take the baths and soak in the tubs and so forth.
And from what I understand, you have a lot of hot springs around here.
Yes, we do.
Okay. And they're still all active and people can participate in
Yes,
that?
yes. There's a lot of bathhouses still around.
Okay.
And along in there somewhere, the bathhouses kind of, it kind of drew other kind of people that came with different kinds of medical miracles.
Right.
And
They always
all
do.
of that kind of all died out for a while, and so Hot Springs or Truth Consequences kind of hung on the vine there for a while with nobody was coming to take the baths or do any of this.
But
it's
they've kind of had a revival.
Yes, they have.
Oh,
in the
that-
last few years, they've had a revival of it. And bathhouses have spruced themselves up, and yeah.
So do they have a big water park for the hot springs also, or are these just mineral springs that you go and bathe in?
They're just mineral places that you go and bathe in, and some of them are they've fixed them up, and they're just really interesting now.
Okay.
Some of them are down by the river, and they have the baths right on the riverbank, and you can look out over the river.
Okay.
Some of them have theme names, and they all have tubs in the room with the hot water, but it might be the Roy Rogers room or the Marilyn
Okay.
Monroe, that type of thing. Some of them are fancier, and some of them are more modern, more,
Right.
they're
Some
not
of
as
them are
fancy.
rustic and some
Well,
of them are fancy.
The one that is the fanciest would be Ted Turner's one over here.
Oh, Ted Turner has one.
Oh yeah,
Okay. And it's open to the public?
yes.
Okay. That's interesting. And so this country around here, Linda and I took a ride yesterday. We went up to Hillsboro, on up over the pass, and we ended up getting lost and loved every minute of it. This country is just so pretty down here. I think a lot of people think of New Mexico as being kind of barren cactus, whatever. But the mountains around here are just absolutely gorgeous, and the views are just outstanding. You guys live in a beautiful place.
Yes, we have desert, mountains, and lakes, and you can go to be in another interesting place in 30 minutes from Deer Street. You
Yes.
can go to the mountains, you can go to the lake, wherever.
Okay, so let's move on. So we are in the Truth or Consequences room.
Ralph Edwards' room.
Ralph Edwards' room, okay. Wow. You have all kinds of costuming. Were these costumes that were used on the show?
Well, after the fiestas got started, it became a thing that every woman had to have her own fiesta dress.
Okay, and all of these clothes are more Mexican style or fiesta style. Yes.
And they started out very simple, and they got fancier and fancier and more expensive and more expensive. So,
And you're still doing the fiestas, right?
yes, they do them, but they're not like they were years ago.
Okay, because I'm looking up here on the wall and you've got all the Fiesta Queens,
Yes.
or are they called Queens?
Yes,
Okay.
Fiesta Queens.
The Fiesta Queens.
Yes, from
And
1950.
wow.
Yeah.
And so you've got all those pictures, you've got lots of dresses, and the men are dressed in Fiesta type clothing also.
Well, most of the men didn't dress like this, but they were encouraged to dress up for the fiesta with cowboys or the Mexican style. But they don't do that so much anymore.
This is a dress that after the name was changed to Truth or Consequences, some lady that lived here took the newspaper that article was in and took it to Albuquerque, and a gentleman turned it into the material, and she made this fiesta dress. So this is the print of the actual news articles that told about the name change.
Oh,
and
really?
some of the photographs that were in the paper when they ran that particular article.
Wow.
It's not the most beautiful as far as fancy goes, but as far as its uniqueness and originality, that's my favorite one in here.
That is really cool. And it's in the Fiesta style or that
it
the
has
women would have worn, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
It was Arletta Coleman, and she owned the newspaper.
Oh, Well, there you go.
Okay, and that was Debbie, the daughter. I'm gonna inject here. That was Debbie, the daughter of Joanne, who we did the podcast at the Gum Museum in Quartzsite. This is how we made the arrangements. Is Joanne told us to get a hold of Debbie, and Debbie has put this thing together for us. So there is a connection between the Gum Museum and this museum. Okay, and then you've got a saddle here that was presented to Ralph Edwards as a gift
Yes.
from the county sheriff's posse. That's pretty cool.
And every year when he would come, they would take the saddle off a display and put it on a horse, and he would ride in a parade on a horse.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And anytime he came in after he got too old to do that, and he would visit the museum, he would come in and jump on that on the saddle tree and sit there
Right here in the museum.
right here in the museum.
Wow.
And these are some of the personalities. A few. We have a lot more, but these are some of the stars that have been here down through the years.
Wow. So you've got a picture or a wall here with what, probably 50 or 60 different
yeah.
pictures.
Yeah.
You've got Robert Reed, you've got Wayne Newton, Peter Graves, Amanda Blake.
Jane Ansfield.
Did a lot of these just come one year, or did a lot of them come back on a continual basis?
This guy right here, Rusty Burrell, that was the whatever he was on.
Oh, the People's Court.
He came for many, many years.
He was the bailiff, I think,
Yes,
wasn't he?
yes.
Richard Dawson. That's Alice off of the Brady Bunch, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm recognizing a few of these people.
I think that's Klinger up there, isn't it?
Yep, Jamie Farr. Wow. A lot of them came here. This is pretty interesting. Wow. Okay, and then you've got a TV up here. Does that show Truth or Consequences movies?
There are snitches of them. It just usually tells the whole story of how this came to be.
Okay.
Named that. But we have some, I think, that do show old shows.
Right, there's one.
It
they're
seems to me that
hilarious.
there was one playing when I was here
yeah.
many years
Yeah,
ago.
there is one little skit they kind of show.
Okay.
And most of those skits were hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this particular one, they have two guys that have to climb a ladder and hang wallpaper, and they can only use one hand to climb the ladder and hang the wallpaper and get the glue down there. It is pretty hysterical.
Okay. I've heard of a statement that was busier than a one-armed paper hanger.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. So, okay. So where do we go from here?
Wherever you wish.
So we're done with the history of
Truth or Consequences.
Truth or Consequences.
Yes.
Okay.
We haven't gotten to the history before Truth or Consequences.
That's where. Okay. Well, let's talk with Mike, who is a geologist, and see what he has to tell us.
Do we need to see the history before Truth or Consequences?
Well, we're going to with Jeff, right?
Jeff and Mike both.
Yeah, they can
actually-
do that, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of
And there's there's enough rooms back over that way that
Okay.
we can do the whole history.
Just want to make sure.
Okay.
Of-
Yeah.
of the
So
county.
we're kind of done with this section of the museum.
haven't-
Unless you want to go in here.
What's in here?
Well, let's go in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got some of the history in here too. Now this is a quilt made out of tobacco sacks. And people embroidered their names on them.
Okay.
Are these their brands?
And some of them have their brands on there, yes.
This is a big
That's a-
cattle country here around us.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
And this is a really nice quilt. It's got probably 100 names on it with different brands,
Yes.
and it's what, probably queen size.
oh, I would say probably double at the time.
Okay.
And I thought it had a year on it, but
Oops, sorry.
I don't see the year it was made.
A long time ago.
Yeah, a long time.
Those are the people that founded Winston, the little town up north, west of here. He was a state senator, and they lived in Winston for years and years and years. And those two people over there are the Pankeys, and they were ranchers here.
Okay, and was Winston a cattle town or was it a mining town?
It was more of a mining town.
Because you have a lot of mining around here.
Yeah, especially in that area, Chloride in Winston.
Okay.
And that's kind of in the northwest part of our county.
Okay.
These murals over here kind of tell the history of our, and they were done by Delmas Howe, who was a rather famous artist, and from Hot Springs, TRC.
Okay.
And that one shows the one down there is Coronado.
Okay.
And then we have Geronimo, and then we have Eugene Manlove Rhodes, who was a cowboy poet that wrote many, many books. And he lived over by Ingle. And we his books were about the area.
Okay, and these murals, there's these 3 murals on the wall. They're probably
Well, there's
8
4.
foot. Oh, there's another one behind me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's Pancho Villa. He wasn't as famous over here as these 3 were.
Okay. And these pictures are good-sized pictures. They're probably 5 foot tall, maybe even 6 foot by 8 foot. And one of them has a cowboy kind of looking over a valley by what I would assume is a ferry dock.
Yes, and that would be out where the Rio Grande comes down.
Okay, because the Rio Grande runs right through here.
Yeah.
And then you've got another one of Geronimo talking with a couple of other braves.
And that
And-
would be up near Winston, Dusty, in
Okay.
what they call the Box Canyon.
And then you've got another one with some of the New
Coronado?
Mexico mountains, Coronado with
Yeah,
the
I think
New
that was-
Mexico mountains, and
That
kind
would
of a
have been
scenery
in,
picture
in
with Coronado in it.
yeah.
And I've always said I will not do any art museums.
Oh,
And the reason is how do you describe art and give a true idea of what the art's really portraying? You have to see it in order to appreciate it.
true.
And because I do an audio podcast, it makes it really tough to describe it well enough. So you need to come take a look at these paintings versus me trying to describe them. And then you've got some nice saddles here.
Oh, yes, we have many saddles. In this case, it's some of the oldest stuff that we have in the museum.
Okay.
Native American yucca, bags made out of yucca frog, sandals, bones. There's an atlatl over there that is one of the oldest pieces in here and our most valuable one.
That is really a fancy atlatl. And for anybody that doesn't know what an atlatl is, it is a launching stick for arrows, pre-bow and arrow time. And they had an arrow that would have a little notch in the back, and this is a stick that's probably 3 foot long. You put the notch in the back of the stick, much like you would those chuck-it dog throwers,
Right.
and you're able to get a lot more distance with your atlatl for more effectiveness in killing your prey.
And that's very, very old. They took it and tried to carbon date it. You know,
Uh-huh.
I don't know how it came out. But
Okay.
that was several years ago.
And then you've got, like you said, the yucca sandals.
Sandals, uh-huh.
I don't know if I've ever seen any that were in that good a shape and still around. Those are really nice
I
pieces.
think these were found in a cave where it was real dry.
Okay. And then you've got a fishing net over here too that's all
Yeah.
woven. And what's this thing?
I think that was a kind of a thing they put on.
Like a breastplate.
Okay.
A what?
Oh, breastplate, this one?
Oh, I thought he was talking about this.
Oh,
I was talking about this, yes.
okay. Never mind.
I think it's a thing they put around them to put them in, to hold them. That's what I was.
Like babies?
Well, so they get in the shape where you bury them or whatever.
Okay.
I
It almost kind of looks like a bark corset is
Yeah.
about the way that I would describe it. And it's probably a foot tall and probably 18 inches round. And it's just a very interesting looking piece of adornment made out of bark. It is really cool.
Yes. And these, I just wanted to point these out to you. A little man in Alamogordo, New Mexico, was a jeweler, and he hand carved all of these. And around the bottom are all the explorers that came. And then the next ones up, you have a representative of all the Native Americans.
And then you have Kachinas at the top level.
Yes.
Okay. And these are all really nicely carved little statuettes.
Yes.
You've got, I'm gonna probably mispronounce a bunch of the names, but Esteban the Moor, Marcos de Ninza, Jocks Carter, Cabeza de Vaca.
Cabeza.
See, you know how to pronounce them. I don't. I knew I was going to butcher it when I started. Everybody's going to be laughing at but that's not a big deal. Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of those, and they're all probably 4 inches tall, all wearing the costuming I say costuming, but the dress of the day.
And hand carved.
And hand carved. Wow. And painted.
Yes.
These are just amazing. And the Kachinas are so cool. You've got all of your Indian chiefs, and wow, that is really neat.
Now see, this whole room here was a bar at one time.
Okay.
And if you come here early in the morning, you know that it was a bar at some time. So when
It still has the smell?
Yes.
Wow. And you've got a fountain going here in the middle that's making a little bit of background noise, but...
You see, the bar was over here on this part.
Okay.
And this was a mural behind the bar.
So it's still here from when the bar was here.
Yeah, well, they covered it up, but we discovered it, so we uncovered it. And in order to get all of the mural in there, we had to move a wall, because it goes clear to the back. And
it's got cowboys branding a cow with wow, it goes all the way back around.
Yeah. So we didn't know what to do with this little space, so we made it into a bar.
Yeah. This is interesting because you got cowboys. One of them's on a bucking horse. I'm assuming that he's got a little bit of a problem with his roundup going on. Another one is roped a cow and has it down, and then they've got the brands going on over here. That's a really neat picture.
And we have every kind of cowboy hat that you want, and each one has a story that goes with it. And they're scattered throughout the museum.
Okay, so you just got to look for the cowboy hats to see what the different stories are. This one here, it says this how it came from the White House department store, Hot Springs, as seen on the inside brand. The White House was located on Broadway in the west end of what is now Sheriff's Office, Martha's Variety Store. It was purchased by Mr. Roy Schoderett of Hillsboro. Shinrod, okay, in Hillsboro in the late 40s at the fantastic sum of $10.95, as attested to the end of the box. The hat of this quality today would be well over $100. Wow. And that's pretty cool that you have all the different hats throughout the museum also.
Over here we have the Eugene Manlove Rhodes, this guy right here.
Okay, the guy that did all the painting?
Right.
Okay.
And some of the books that he wrote are there, and this...
so he was an artist and an author?
More of an author.
More of an author, okay.
More of a character.
Okay.
And this guy on the cow, that was Joel McCrae, and it was in the movie that The Four Faces West. That was a book that Rhodes wrote, and they made a movie of it, and it was the only Western that not a shot was fired in it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Huh. And it's got a picture of him riding on a steer,
Yeah.
I'm assuming, with pretty decent-sized horns.
Yeah, and it was Joel McCrae. I don't know if you remember him as a Western.
I'm not a big movie and TV watcher, so...
And this one is particularly interest. This is Preacher Lewis. He came to Las Cruces as a young man, or a young boy, and he was sickly, and he learned how to knit. And as he got older, he became a minister. But he had Las Cruces all the way up to Hillsboro, on up to San Rochelle, back down through here.
Wow.
But he walked it. He walked it every week.
What?
He did. He would walk, and somebody would always come along and give him a ride to the next place. And as he went along, he knitted, and you could see the picture there. And he would knit like baby caps
Wow.
and things. And then he would give them out to the people that had babies along the way. And everybody knew him, and they'd see him walking. He'd get to San Michelle on Saturday, and he'd catch the train back down to Las Cruces to preach, and then he would start it all over again.
How many mile circle is that?
It would be, gosh,
Las Cruces is what, 100 miles from here?
no, it's 70.
Okay.
It would have easily been a 100-mile circuit.
And he did that every single week.
He did it
And he
every-
preached at each place on the way.
Yes.
That guy had to be in shape.
Well, he walked, he carried his little bag with him. But like I say, once he started walking, people knew him. So they'd pick him up and take him to the next town, you know.
Wow. And how many years did he do this?
Oh, for years and years.
And it says, although preacher Lewis had a lifetime pass on the Santa Fe Railroad, the trains did not fit his schedule. His usual means of transportation was his feet, and for 40 years, he started out on foot every Monday morning on his missionary route, which took him to Rincon, Hatch, Array, Lake Valley, Hillsboro, Hot Springs, now Truth or Consequences, Ingle, and San Marshall. This area covers some 30,000 square miles.
Yep.
Wow. That is just so fascinating.
And he was always taking up a collection for Mr. So-and-so over here. His kids were hungry or they needed shoes, and so he'd go into a bar.
Really?
And he would just say, okay, boys, I need, and they would pass the money along to him, and then he'd take it to the family.
Really?
Everybody between here and there and everywhere knew him.
Oh, I'll bet they did. You can't miss a preacher walking every week.
They said he had carried it in a little pouch, his money.
Uh-huh.
And way up in the mountains here, they found a pouch one day. These guys were up there, and they knew immediately it was his because he always carried it, with him.
Uh-huh.
So they just picked it up and brought it back to him.
Wow. What a story. And then you've got some ladies' clothing here with the old ostrich
Yes.
feather hats and just some really nice dresses. Now, were these part of the Truth or Consequences deal at all, or is this
No,
just...
these are actually old dresses
Okay.
that were donated to us.
Okay. This is a really neat display of the fashions of whatever day it was. It looks like the
Some
the
of them I
10s
think
and-
were the 1800s. And
Were
some-
they?
Most of them were in the early 1900s.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
Yeah.
thinking it looked like. But
The same with the hats and all this down here.
glasses and curling irons and wow.
And this is another case where we have old things. These are buffalo gloves.
Okay. Wow. You've got gloves and an old whiskey jug
And
and
these are,
yucca needles with fibers for sewing.
yes.
Wasn't that interesting? Some arrowheads.
And these are bracelets made out of seashells.
Okay.
And this is spears and tomahawks and
And I'm assuming your other room that you've got that Jeff's going to take us through has a whole bunch more of that stuff.
well, bowls. Yeah, mostly bowls.
Cool.
Okay, these are interesting. The
Oh, yeah.
rock art of Sierra County. What do you think that is?
It looks to me like a spaceship.
Good for you. I ask the kids when they come through, and they say that. I have no idea what it is, but that's what I always thought it to be.
Well, I'm kind of one of those gullible people that believe that the aliens and spaceships have been
Yeah.
around for thousands of years.
Yep.
And these, now, is this the average size of the rock? This rock is probably 2 foot round, and it has a whole bunch of pictographs on it.
Yeah, and it was found, I would say within 15 or 20 miles of TRC.
You've got a couple of them here. Are
Yes.
there a bunch more out there, or do you?
I don't. These were given to us by citizens who had gone out there and picked them up. So
Okay.
I don't know.
And then you have a whole bunch of the grinding stones with the.
yes,
Yeah.
way too many of those.
Huh.
And these bronze depict the pictures that are up here.
Okay, and the bronzes are around a fountain. That's what you're hearing in the
Yes.
background with the water running. Okay. Well, I guess we should go find Mike and see what Mike has to tell us.
Yes, I think we've about explored all here we need to explore.
Okay. Well, this has really been interesting, Ann. I appreciate you taking us through this and giving us this history. So now we're with Mike, and Mike's a geologist, and Mike's going to take us through the geology of the area and some of the collection that they have that way.
Okay, so the geology of western New Mexico is fairly complex. It's the whole area when the continents were sort of separating. All the rocks started folding up as the plate moved west, and that caused the mountains here about 30 million years ago. And so you have a lot of folding and a lot of opportunity for volcanic activity, a lot of minerals, a lot of hot spring minerals coming up to the surface, and so western New Mexico became a hotbed of mining.
Okay.
And so many different types of minerals were found in western New Mexico, copper being predominant, silver, gold, manganese. They did a lot of mining for manganese during the war to help with stainless steel production.
Okay.
Lots of fluorite, beautiful fluorite crystals, but that was mined for the fluorine content, for fluoridated water and toothpaste, and also for metal processing. We have huge barite mines in western New Mexico here, and the barite is very, very heavy. They use that for making mud to hold when they're drilling for oil, is to hold the pressure down. So this is just a whole potpourri of mining opportunities here. There are many mines that are still active, but most of them have long since stopped. There's a huge copper deposit west of here, around Silver City. That's one of the largest copper mines in the Southwest.
Really?
So that part of the geology is very, very fascinating. But part of that geology is why the hot springs are here.
Okay.
So what happened is the Rio Grande River was coming through, and it moved from over by where the spaceport is to this part of New Mexico.
Okay, can I stop you there?
Sure.
Tell me about this spaceport.
Well, the spaceport is...
I know it has nothing to do with
Oh,
geology.
that's okay.
but-
That's all right, but it's a fascinating area. The spaceport is where Virgin Galactic shoots their rockets into space. There's also a sling rocket launch pad there. And if you read about Branson going up into space for a few
Right.
minutes, well, that came from the spaceport here.
And how
So
close is that?
It's about 30 miles away.
And is it accessible to the public at all? Or?
You can't. You have to get a guide. You have to get a tour to go in. They do tours of it at certain times of the year, and we have a visitor center here in Tier C that takes people out to the spaceport. And the spaceport has a huge runway and a restricted airspace. So this is also where the Air Force Thunderbirds practice in January.
Okay.
And they just left.
Okay. Well, now this is way cool. Okay, so let's get back into the geology. I'm
So-
going to have to. I may have to see if I can get a podcast at that place. 'cause that
Oh
sounds
yeah,
way
it's
cool.
fascinating.
Okay.
So anyway, the geology of the area, like I said, was a lot of folding, a lot of volcanic activity. So when the river came through, it eroded out a bunch of the real old Carboniferous limestones from the Mississippian and Pennsylvanian period, and filled the whole valley up with alluvium. Then there were a lot of faults, cracked faults through the rock. One of the largest faults is right behind the museum here.
Oh, really?
And what happens now is the water comes from about the San Mateo Mountains, which
Okay.
is northwest of us, goes deep underneath to about a mile or so. It gets heated up by the groundwater down because it's very hot down there, and it comes up this fault that's behind the museum and spreads into the river alluvium where all the hot springs are.
Really?
So now you have a hot water district, which we're sitting in the middle of. Just outside the museum here is where the first hot springs were, the healing waters where the Apache Indians used to come to heal.
Okay.
And then the white man came, and of course there was a little bit of a dispute about who owns the hot springs. That's another whole long story. But anyway, this whole town is full of hot spring spas. Artesian hot spring spas. Most of the homes down in this area each have their own hot springs tub.
Do they heat with the hot water too? Or?
No, they do not heat with it. It's not quite hot enough.
Okay.
Unlike the hot springs up in Pagosa Springs, this is only about 107 degrees, where the hot springs up in Pagosa Springs can get much hotter, and they heat the entire downtown
Really?
with the hot springs.
Okay.
Can't quite do that with this water. But also, this water is very odor-free. So there's very low sulfur. It's all silicon and sodium and magnesium rich, so the minerals in the hot springs here are very good for healing, and people come from all over the world just to soak in the hot springs here because of the healing waters.
Okay, so they're high in magnesium. So
High
it'd
in
be like
magnesium.
having a hot bath in Epsom salt.
Exactly, only better.
Really?
So it is so nice.
Now, is it super mineralized?
It's very, very high mineralized, and that's why there's so many mines around here, because a lot of the hot water came up in the cracks because of all the tectonic activity. The water came up through those cracks and deposited tons of quartz and calcite and other minerals. Same water, only it was hotter back in about 20, 30
Right.
million years ago, or 10 million years ago, than it is now. But it's still, most of the water comes up about 107 degrees here. And so
That's
you gotta-
still plenty warm.
That's still plenty warm. And so you've got old hotels like the Charles, which is an old 50s type hotel that has hot water mineral baths, all the way down to Riverbend, which has the fanciest hot water springs, Ted Turner's, and also down at Blackstone, really fancy hot water springs.
Okay.
But that's how that water flows. So we have a room here that is full of the types of minerals that you find in western New Mexico. So you can come, if you take a look here, we've got beautiful crystals, and you can't see it on
wow.
the podcast. These are all the types of minerals that are that you find in western New Mexico.
And you've got lots of crystals, like the fluoride crystals. You've got the halorite.
Halite, which is salt.
That is really
You got some
cool. It
beautiful-
almost looks like a mica that is blue.
It's a blue salt, yeah.
Wow.
And so you've got
Show that to John.
Yeah. And then
Selenite?
you got selenite, which is, it's scratched up a little, got scratched up at, most of these came from the museum in Socorro. The Mineral Museum in Socorro is one of the finest mineral museums in the country. And it's right up here, 60 miles up the road at New Mexico Tech. Really worth the visit. This is part of their backstock, some of the stuff that they were getting rid of. So they gave it to us.
Could have, yeah. I was going to say this
gave
is
it to
fantastic stuff.
And so I have a
Smoky
relationship
quartz.
with the people up there. But this is the copper that comes from up at Silver City. This is the type of manganese ore I was telling you about that came down at Lake Valley. Smoky quartz, which is up north and east of us. Calcite here. We have a mineral called smithsonite, which is a very common. That's not a common mineral looking like this. It looks more like this when they mine it. That's a source of zinc in the area. We have petrified wood here. Just all kinds of beautiful. But this is a really good example of beautiful quartz and fluorite.
Wow. And when we're looking at these specimens that you have, my mind immediately goes to a specimen that is maybe 2 inches by 2 inches. These ones here are all big rocks.
These are big rocks.
This one right here's got to be 18 inches
18
long
inches.
And 12 inches wide.
Yeah.
And just full of the crystals.
So another thing that happened, we had this all used to be underwater. So nearby there are all kinds of fossils, fossil clams and crinoids and old, different kinds of plants. But more recently, about 10 million years ago or 20 million years ago, the mastodons and mammoths roamed the earth, and we have 2 mastodon skulls that were collected up by Elephant Butte Lake about 5 miles from here.
Okay.
This
Is that why it's called Elephant Butte?
No, it's called Elephant Butte because there's a butte there that looks a lot like an elephant standing
Oh,
there. You have
and
to
it just
use your-
happens to be mammoths.
Yeah, these just happen to be mastodons. These are mastodons. This one here, the lady you were just talking to, discovered this particular mastodon skull.
Anne discovered this.
Anne
And Anne
discovered
takes us through the history over here and doesn't even mention what she's famous for.
No.
What a humble lady.
So we have beautiful example of a mastodon skull found locally. She had to really talk to the people at the Bureau of Mines to let us keep it.
And how did
then
she find it? She was just
she was
sitting on a rock?
She was hiking, and it was sticking out, and so she started to uncover it, and next thing you know, she's got this mastodon found. So she is famous.
Wow.
15 minutes of fame.
Her 15,
For 15 minutes. Hey, we're still talking about it, and I know this has been here longer than 15 minutes.
So we've also, this is a big piece of mastodon poop from the same area.
Cropolite.
Cropolite.
I
yeah.
got a friend that collects that stuff and polishes it up and makes it all pretty. Some pretty cool stuff. He'll be excited to see this.
Oh yeah. So this is just.
Now, did Ann find that too?
I don't know. Did you find the cropolite?
You didn't find the poop.
So
You found the head, but not the tail.
so anyway, and in this museum we have a display here that talks about the hot springs and the geology of the area. This gives an example of what the deposit looks like. This is that fault that's going up behind the museum here.
Okay.
And you can see where the water got into there, and these are a location of all the wells that they studied. This paper was written in 2014, but there's been a whole lot more wells drilled. And at one time, the water was 114 degrees.
Okay. It's
So
only
just-
107 now.
Yeah. So anyway, but the mineral history and the geologic history and all the fossil history here is really amazing.
Yes. I am just looking at this stuff is amazing.
Yeah, so we have a whole display of fossils that were found in this area. We have our local rock club, Sierra County Rock and Gem Society, has taken over this room, and we keep trying to improve it and make it look really world class. We have a display of their minerals here. And just throw a little plug, we have a Rock and Gem show coming up at the end of March.
Every year?
Every year. So it's up here. It's here in town at the Fair Barn, and anybody that's listening wants to come out to our Rock and Gem show.
Cool.
We'd love to have them. And at the same time, the museum is holding a fundraiser dinner.
Okay.
So
Well, that sounds like a good time. We went to the Gem and Mineral Show in Tucson last year.
that's
It just blows your mind.
blows your mind. And that,
Oh.
yeah, last year they did a special on fluorescent minerals. So if you come around this corner and hit that little green button on the
Little
right
green
there.
button right there. Okay.
And let me close this behind you. You may want to come in and see this
Oh yeah.
fluorescent mineral display.
All those fluorescent minerals are so cool.
And it starts out with shortwave light. And the person that put this together is part of the national. He's also local. He's a member of the National Fluorescent Mineral Display. So now the shortwave light will come on, and look at that.
That's
Those really light up. And you've got about 100 different specimens in here.
Yes, and just gorgeous. Many of those are from western New Mexico. A couple are from the east that are classic fluorescent minerals. And you'll notice that when the light turns off, the mineral in the black will keep glowing. So this is under both lights, short and long wave.
wow.
And you've got
ultraviolet.
blues and reds
Yes.
and pinks and oranges. Some of them almost look like glowing coals. They're so
they do.
orange. And,
Yes, they do.
Wow.
And it's just, I mean,
Just beautiful.
and see how that
look
last
at
one
that
stayed lit up?
It does.
That has a special characteristic to it. When the light was formed with the atoms moving back and forth, or actually the electrons in the atoms moving back and forth. And when the light goes off, typically they stop moving, and that one they keep bouncing back and forth
That's interesting.
after the ultraviolet light goes off.
Wow.
That is so cool.
And so, do you have any more questions about the minerals and history?
Well, I guess I do, because when we were driving around, you've got a lot of old, I would say, ghost towns or just old towns that
Yes.
that we saw, and those mines are all closed down.
Those mines are all closed, but
Were they real profitable in their day?
Yes,
or?
they were. You go up there towards Hillsboro, and
Uh-huh.
Hillsboro and Kingston used to be the largest towns in western
And
New
how
Mexico.
big was Hillsboro?
I don't remember. Do you know how large Hillsboro was back in that time? But it was a hopping place, around 10,000 people or something.
Really?
like that.
And now it's got probably 200?
If that many. But it's a quaint little town. I mean,
Oh,
it's
I
worth-
really enjoyed going through there. And then what was the other one that we went to that was over the hill from there?
Kingston.
No, did we make it to Kingston yesterday? Yes, we did. We made it to Kingston, and again, it's a small town,
Right.
Very very small. Kingston only had what, maybe 50 people?
50 people, and we have friends up there.
7,000
people. And then all around, if you head south, you go to a little area called Lake Valley, all different kinds of mines. So this whole area, there are little ghost towns, and you'll see towns where there's nothing left except the foundations.
Right. Yeah.
And those are all little mining towns all over the place. Its entire west of New Mexico was all about mining. If you go further north, up towards Grants and Gallup, you had a lot of uranium mines up there
Okay.
during the 50s. When the uranium boom was going on, that's where I got my start. I was a uranium mineralogist in the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Now, can I ask a really stupid question?
there's no stupid question.
Oh, well, this one borderlines it. Okay, so you have these guys that are coming out from, let's say, New York, and they're coming out here because of the mineral booms and going to make it big, digging for gold, silver, copper, whatever it may be.
Including my family.
Okay, so they come out here and they go to the local hardware store and they buy a shovel. How do they know, if they're not geologists, where to start digging a hole so that they might find something
Well,
that's worth keeping?
There's a little bit of information. If what they look for, there's a couple things that they would look for. You'd look for a really fractured rock with a lot of white mineralization or reddish brown mineralization, which they called a gossan. And they would follow that. They'd start chipping away until they found a seam, just a little seam in a quartz dike with mineralization in it. And then they would start blasting and following that all the way. So most of your minerals, copper minerals, of course the copper mineral deposits out here are more of a porphyry type. That means it's got large chunks, but large chunks inside of harder rock. But a lot of these, the old manganese mines, the old fluorite mines, the old gold mines, the old silver mines, that's exactly what these old prospectors would do, and they'd chip away. Very few of them actually hit it rich.
Okay.
But those that did made a ton of money. And they would play out those gold and silver seams and stuff until it was all done. My contention is that there's still more down there than what they've taken out.
Oh, you would think.
I would think so, because it's just.
But these guys that came from different places had the knowledge to be able to figure out, or because they weren't geologists.
Or they just learned from other miners. Somebody would come out here and say, "I want to strike it rich. Where do I go and what do I look for?" Well, that's how it happened. And I come from an old family of miners. My father was a miner. My dad was a miner. And his father was a miner. And
Some cards, they're in here.
yeah, all my aunts and uncles were miners.
Wow.
So that's how I got into geology. My dad got me a job in a mine once up in Telluride to show me what I didn't want to do for a living.
Well, that was good. That was good. So.
But just the geology here is fascinating, and it's very, very complex compared to many other areas of the country.
Okay. Yeah, this is just so fascinating. I don't want that on there.
Okay, let me see if I can find. Hey, Jeff.
Jeff's here.
Jeff, you're up. You're up. Now, this is Jeff, and he is an expert at the pottery.
Good to meet you, Jeff.
And especially the arrowheads that you're going to see, and it's a world-class
I can
collection.
hardly wait to see it.
It's right here, just down that aisle.
It's good to meet you, Jeff. Good to meet you. Where are you from? We are from Wyoming, Basin, Wyoming, to be exact. And we've got a little museum up there in Thermopolis that has quite the collection of arrowheads also.
Have you seen
But
this yet?
I have not. I am very excited to see it. Just walking down the aisle here, you guys have tons of pottery. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, so, you know.
So you're talking a period of 8,000 years before present. Okay,
Right.
that's an interesting way to document it. Instead of AC or AD and BC, you've got BP, which is before present. So 8,000-year-old arrowheads on up. Now, what kind of method were they using to shoot these projectiles? Were those on arrows, like with a bow? Was it spear, atlatl?
The atlatl darts were prominent in this area until 1,500 years ago when the self-bow showed up.
Okay.
And when you find a point, you can tell whether it's an atlatl dart or an arrow point by the distance of the sides or the notches. So if you look at these little things here,
Right.
those would go on a real tiny shaft, so those would have been arrow points. That one maybe also, but that one, no. That's really
Okay, because that
wide,
one's wide
so that would have been an atlatl
and
dart.
short. So it's probably an inch long and probably 3/4 of an inch wide, inch and a half long maybe. And the one right above it would be maybe a 1/2 inch wide and the same length, about an inch and a half long. So that one would have been on an arrow.
Like that.
That one would have been atlatl.
That would have been atlatl.
Really? That's kind of.
Okay, now talk a little bit about the atlatl. We looked at the one over there. I kind of described what it was, but maybe describe a little bit about the accuracy that they were able to get with it. Maybe the amount of projectile.
What it did is it acts as a lever and gives you more leverage when you're throwing the dart.
Right.
So by giving you that extra leverage and snap at the end, instead of doing this, it does that.
It runs straight instead of
The
arches.
velocity goes way up.
Okay, and what are we talking about the difference in velocity between maybe throwing a spear and an
It's the
atlatl?
difference between hitting a tennis ball with a tennis racket versus throwing a tennis ball with your arm.
Okay. And I've got one of those chuckets for the dogs, you know. that-
Exact-
that
that's the
throws a
exact
tennis ball
same thing.
further.
Right.
It's but I cannot get any accuracy. I've tried like you would not believe to throw that ball and hit a target, whether it's a tree or a rock or whatever. And the closest I can get is probably 10 feet. No consistency whatsoever.
The accuracy will go up with the amount of hunger you're experiencing.
Is that the way that works?
Well, when you're hunting with an atlatl, you get good at throwing it at what you're aiming for, or else you go hungry.
Well, they must have spent hours and hours, but I've got a lot of hours on that chucket, and I still can't. I mean, and I'm not hungry.
They
of
start
course.
from the time they can walk,
Right.
watching Dad,
Right.
and by the time they're capable of using one, they're pretty good at it.
And they were able to bring down mammoths and other very large animals.
There's
with
an
the atlatls.
example that showed up in Arizona. A flash flood revealed the remains of a mastodon.
Okay.
Okay, it was laying in what had been a river or a small impound of water, a little pond. The people that killed it took the meat as far as they could get, but
Okay.
they left half of it basically
Oh, really?
in the mud. So years later, it gets exposed again. They pull out this half a mastodon, and on the other side, there were 27 stemmed points in it.
Really?
So it was a matter of get up, hit it, get away, chase it, hit it, get away. And these creatures, as they started to realize they're in trouble, were dying, they would head for water instinctively.
Okay.
So that's what this thing did. It went to the water, it died. They recovered about half the meat and left it for the next 8,000 years.
Wow.
Till
27 points
27 on just that one
on
side.
one side.
So it wasn't just like you throw it, it hits them, and they fall over dead like in the movies.
Right, right.
I'm sure it happened at sometimes, but most of the time
It was more a bleed out situation.
Exactly, death through 1,000 cuts.
Wow. That's just an amazing thought.
You saw the mastodon skulls in there, so
Right.
you can imagine a full-size mastodon. And they were probably like a rhino. They could probably move at the same speed a rhino could. And you got to get within 20, 40 yards to make the connection with the dart.
Well, and
So
then to
you're
get
risking your life every time you take a shot at the thing.
and not only that, but to be able to get the penetration into vital areas has got. I mean, with any, even like with a bow, with a stone tip, it seems like it'd be more of a bounce off the hide than what it is penetrate.
I'm sure there were a lot that bounced off the hide.
And so, I guess my next question is, you've got all of these points. Were these points recovered very often, or did they just remanufacture new ones?
Good question.
I know I'm asking things that you weren't there to see, and would probably love to have been there to see. But
A lot of the points, well, here we got a really good example. We have got what was once probably a knife, because that's a little too wide. That one was a dart. So that has been reshaped along with these to act as scrapers.
okay,
So an older culture makes the point. They go out, they hunt, they lose it for whatever reason, they don't take it with them. Another culture comes along and goes, aha, look at this nice sharp thing I found. I'm going to use it, break it, sharpen it, break it, use it until you get these little nubs. Most all of these are not brand new. They've all
Okay.
been broken and worn down. You can really see it in the asymmetry of some of them. You can see this
Okay,
one. See how
right.
that one edge is a little bit off from that edge?
right,
It's no longer capable of being a projectile. Now it is a cutting tool.
okay. So they were repurposed over and over again.
Yeah, there is a progression. So they would start with a blank,
Okay,
a preform. There's a good example of a
Right.
preform. They would use it as a cutting tool, and then when they needed a projectile point, they would sharpen it and make it into a projectile point.
really?
When the projectile point would break, you'd find pieces of it and use the pieces to cut, scrape, whatever.
Wow.
So that's why the Clovis and Folsom cultures that were some of the first cultures here, their points are really rare, because not only do you have modern day collectors going after these things, in the past every culture that came after them would find them and reuse them and repurpose them.
Oh, that makes
Wow.
so much sense.
But yeah, I've never heard it described that way.
If you should go out to Ingle, where the Armendariz Ranch headquarters is out there, they have their collection that was taken off the ranch there, and they have a Clovis point that has been repurposed into a drill.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what size drill? It's a very fine drill, isn't it?
No, it's going to be pretty coarse.
Is
drill.
it? Okay. We went to the Bead Museum in Prescott, Arizona, and he had a drill that was made like an arrowhead out of stone, and the point on it was probably like 1/8 inch, and they were using it in a hand drill. Yes, very similar to that, all except it was this one's probably 3/4 inch point that's tapered, but the one that he had was probably 1.5 inches long. Yes, very much like
It's
that
missing its base, but that's pretty much a
Okay.
very fine. I would say that's more of a pin than a drill, because drilling you're putting torque.
one. Right.
So when you find a drill that's broken, it's usually broken because of the torque.
Okay.
Some of the drilling for like that
Right.
could have been made with a point,
Okay.
just twisting it,
twisting it
turn it
through.
over and twist again. We're looking at what's called a whorl. It's a piece of pottery that has been made into a circular plate, a circular
Right.
disc.
And it's about 1.5
then
inches
with a
round.
hole through the center, and it would have been used in spinning
Spinning wool as a weight.
wool, plant fibers.
Okay.
We're not sure, but we know that contemporary they have things very similar to that. for
Right.
Spinning.
And it makes a weight to where it'll allow the fibers to spin,
spin.
And work into each other. You've got some necklaces here.
Yes, these are the recent donation. These are all shell and associated with some turquoise, but you can see how they would shape some of the beads rather than just the standard Hishi
Right.
style beads where they make a hole and then run the outsides.
And a lot of these
And, shell.
arrowhead and spear point displays have different shell beads and some of that in them.
Again, the people that
just
were putting
amazing.
these together were probably in violation of one of the laws about digging graves and
Okay.
because they were digging up sites, which is totally illegal today.
Right.
So that's why we have such a high collection of beads. Usually you don't find that many on the surface of your surface hunting.
Okay. Yeah, this is just amazing. Just absolutely amazing at all the different points. Now, are these ones here really primitive?
Yeah, you can see the crudeness of that. That could have been a preform or a blade. That is definitely a repeating stabbing spear point.
And what kind of rocks were they using for the spear points here? I know obsidian was really popular, and
Anything that was highly vitreous, glass-like, so that
Right.
it broke with a conchoidal fracture, very sharp edges. Obsidian is volcanic glass, so that was probably one of the finest choices you could get. Some of the finest things we have are made from obsidian, but there's also cherts and other materials that have a high silica content that allow for them to manufacture these things in a predictable way. Because if
Right.
you know how it's going to break, you can build a
well,
point.
flint napping's a real skill. I've seen some modern day flint nappers, and there again, I guess if you're making these things from the time you're a kid and your life depends on it because that's what you're using to hunt, you probably get pretty proficient. But I would assume that there were probably people in the tribe that were much better at hunting and others that were maybe better at flint napping.
There's a lot of trade in flint and flint tools
Between the tribes?
between the cultures.
Okay. Yeah, okay, he said cultures. Yeah.
Tribal is too modern for me. We're looking back at people that came to this landscape and there wasn't anybody really here.
Okay.
And it was so underpopulated that it wasn't until the Puebloan period when the cultures were expanding out and trading their pottery, their baskets, their arrowheads in a nice little triangle of trade in the southwest here with turquoise going south, macaw feathers and turkeys coming north out of Mexico, trade with Arizona for the obsidian points,
Okay.
trade with salt. You know, all these things were mined and traded around for going back thousands of years.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, Linda.
Are these sharpening tools, or are they making some kind of hammer?
These are shaft abraders. So,
Okay, we're looking at a rock here that's probably 2 inches round and would fit in the palm of your hand. It looks like really nice and has a groove right through the middle of it.
right. So when you think about it, what's the hardest thing of a projectile? It's not the point, it's the straight stick that it's attached to.
Right, okay.
So these are shaft abraders. So they would have a matching pair of these things, and they would pull the shaft through there, heat it
Okay.
up, bend it, scrape it, pull it, until they tried to get it go straight.
Now, were they using steam or were they just using heat?
I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Because
would
I know that
imagine-
steaming wood, you can do a lot of things.
Yeah, steaming and bending. Do we have any sign that they had a vessel that would make steam? Well, I doubt it. I really do, because they were cooking in pottery, and
Right.
I don't know if they had a way to steam the whole piece of wood. I think mostly they shaved it and bent, and shaved it and bent, and heated the
Okay.
wood directly to help pull the twist out of it or pull the bend out of it. Because again, finding a straight stick in nature, with the exception of reeds.
But even those have a bend to them.
Right. So
Not just looping as it's
Right.
going, but you'd have to learn how to shoot around corners.
So that brings us back
40 yards.
That brings us back to the atlatl dart. There seems to be two technologies, two schools. One was a heavy, clunky rock on the end of the shaft, and that massive weight out front, and the shaft acted like the stabilizer.
Okay.
And then later they went to lighter points, lighter stones on the tip, and fleshing on the back. So you had stabilization that way.
Okay.
Who knows which came first? But when you look at the points, I mean, that would have been a pretty heavy, clunky rock
Right.
on the end of the thing versus one of these over here. They would have been much lighter. So,
Which
Yeah.
again, with the heavier, clunky rock, the penetration would be harder through the hide, you would think.
yeah, but the velocities would be lower
Okay.
because you're moving a larger mass with your throw.
Right.
Whereas if you have a lighter dart, you have better trajectory,
I wish we had.
greater speed, and thus more kinetic energy.
Okay.
Where you're relying on the mass to create the kinetic energy. This way, the whole dart is creating the kinetic energy. And they extrapolated that when they went to the bow, because
Okay.
arrows are much lighter and smaller, with a very small point on the end of it, and yet they're able to take down large game.
Right.
You know, these little points, people call them bird points. These were just as useful bringing down a deer than as they would be a rabbit or a small bird.
Yeah, it's a matter of the injury that you can inflict.
And in the other case with the atlatl, there were some shafts there and tips. There were 9 tips that were made out of hardwood. So they used hardwood tips on the atlatl themselves. They also used them on arrows
Okay.
because not everybody can make a arrowhead.
So just a sharpened stick.
Right.
Now you've got bones in here that are also ground down to a point.
Right. These pin-looking things are bone, and some of them are very favored. They have little holes drilled through them to retain them.
And some of
We're
these are
not
like
really-
8-10 inches long and narrow, sharpened bones.
Some of them could have been used as pins for blankets around your
Okay.
body to hold them in. But we had a volunteer who said no. She took one and wrapped her hair with it and stuck it in her hair.
Okay.
So they were utilitarian. We know
Okay.
that they used them because there's like this one is highly polished.
Right.
And you know these ones are favored, so they didn't lose them. So I could see that as being something that might hold the cloak together. If they had a shelter made from hide or something, that could also close the door.
Right.
They didn't leave us writings, so we have to just have the evidence we have, and the speculation can go far afield. But the reality is, they were favored, they were reused. Some of them were incised.
Okay.
That one right there has 3 little lines across
Right.
it. Somebody took the time to pretty up their pin.
Okay. And so they wouldn't have used the bones as an arrow point, more than likely.
Yeah, these I wouldn't say were ever used as arrow points because the tips are so perfect.
Right.
If they were using them as arrow points or projectiles, you'd see the tips would damage.
Okay.
And, you know, they could have also been used as
Right.
a self-defense mechanism, but I think everybody back then were so busy gathering and feeding themselves that they didn't have time to play silly games.
We'd like to think that, wouldn't
We'd
we?
like to think
you
that.
shot my deer. Okay, then we come on into the pottery end of things.
Right. We're starting at the back end here. This is a little collection of small miniature pottery and animal figurines that have been associated with children.
Okay.
I've heard both grave goods and toys.
Who knows?
Who knows? But
Okay.
we've made a little collection of them here close to the glass where you can see them close up.
And we've got little figurines of pottery pots, like for carrying water. One with a handle on it, several that are kind of bowl shaped. We've got a dinosaur-looking one here. That's kind of interesting.
It is very interesting because they did not coexist, but we're thinking this is just a imaginary,
And what's the dinosaur that looks like that? Triceratops?
but it's not a triceratops. I think it's more of an antelope or something.
Okay. It looks like the fattest antelope I've ever seen.
This one looks
but
like a pig,
that one does look like a
but it
pig.
could also be a dog.
And then you've got one that looks maybe like a bighorn sheep.
Right, I would imagine bighorn sheep, but that was one of their favorite foods.
Right.
So they would have put their favorite things that they were hunting out there for the kids to play with. What I like is the painting on some of these little pots. They're so detailed, like the adult-size pots.
Yes.
That this was not just something they threw together quickly without thought. They put some thought into this.
Yeah. Yeah, because they are painted up nice and a lot like the big pots that they have.
Just as get to this little display here, we have 3 arrows in this case. They came from the Apache Kid murder site when they murdered him up
Okay.
in the San Mateos. These were in his camp.
Really?
And for what I've been told by the archaeologists is these metal-tipped points are some of the finest arrows they've ever seen.
Really?
These are made from Apache plume. And they had flights of, I don't know what kind of bird that was. But the interest generated by these 3 points was amazing.
And where did they find them? I mean,
They found them at the camp of the Apache Kid
right.
in the 1890s when they murdered him up there. He was the last free roaming.
And how did you guys acquire them?
I'm not clear on that. Somebody donated this to us, and she had them for a long time. So,
Okay.
yeah, we don't know.
Wow.
I mean, we could look it up in the records. I don't personally know.
Okay.
But yeah, the museum has records on this.
Wow. Okay, and then you've got a couple of bracelets that came from
Yes,
the same site.
same thing. One of these bracelets has got designs on it, and the interest is that the designs were done by a very prominent silversmith. And this
Okay.
would be some of his first works.
Okay.
So, yeah, very interesting.
Cool. That is interesting.
It's a shame that we don't have his rifle, because when the Apache Kid was killed, he was using a 30-40 Krag.
Oh, really?
Military surplus.
Yeah. Well, and that would have been the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it was around the turn of the century when they caught up with him and did him in.
Wow. And was he causing lots of problems at that time?
He was the last wild Apache, so raiding and stealing horses, cows was the way he knew how to do things.
Okay.
And he wasn't going to quit his cultural traditions.
Right. Well,
And the Anglos got tired of it and hunted him down and basically murdered him.
huh. Wow. Okay.
So that brings us back to our ceramic collection. I am not the expert on the ceramics, but we have a very large collection.
Very large.
Several different varieties and cultures have made these. We have everything from the blackened cookingware to the very finely painted membranous pots with the bowls with the images inside of them.
And very intricate painted designs and all. Okay, now, in relation, I'm going to ask another question, I guess, and maybe totally off base, but in relation to this pottery and the petroglyphs and pictographs, where does these time frames fit in? The reason I ask is because I have this big curiosity about why these natives were able to design stuff that is so intricate, so finely tuned, and yet the best they can do is draw something that looks like a balloon with horns coming out of it for elk.
Well, you have two issues here. When you're doing a petroglyph, you're knocking the patina off the rock.
Okay.
And that takes a lot of work and effort to peck out your petroglyph.
Right.
A pictograph is where they're taking the red paint or the paint
Right.
and painting on it. This is more like pictograph because they're painting on.
But the
bowls.
pictographs still look like a third grade drawing versus
Right, because a lot of
somebody that's got real artistic
my
skill.
understanding of the petroglyph pictographs is that was a representation of a vision.
Okay. That might explain.
A lot of this is symbolic, so we have a lot of symbology that could also be extrapolated to the earlier petroglyphs.
Okay.
I've tried to find out which cultures did this. It's very confusing and hard to say who picked up the rock and knocked the patina off just based on the styles. But we do know who made these pots,
Okay.
these bowls.
And who was that?
Well, this is the Mugion whiteware and the Members boldface.
Okay. And we're talking about AD 750 to 1130. So about
Right,
a
so-
500 year span.
Right, so not that long ago.
Okay.
When you're looking at projectile points that go back 13,000 years.
Right.
Or more, even more.
Wow, this is quite the collection. And all this stuff was found right here in this area?
No, A lot of it was found in the mountains around this area, on ranches and other places. Again, I don't have the records of who donated all of this or where it came from, but I'm sure somewhere in their archives we have that information.
Well, we had a sign up there, but it's gone.
Yeah, we took it down because it's not a good idea to tell who donated what.
Okay. And this is some amazing pottery work. You've got bowls with a fish in the painted in the bottom. One with, it looks like a bee, a honeybee kinda. You've got birds. That one back there, even I can just about identify that that's a grouse of some sort.
It looks like a turkey to me.
Or a turkey, yeah, okay. Kind of turtle over here, another fish. This one's got to be a hummingbird.
Yep.
Along with all the geometric designs that you normally see on pottery. And a lot of this stuff is fully complete. It's not just shards.
Right.
And you can see exactly what the bowls were. You've got dipping bowls like for water, and carrying bowls like for water or grains or whatever.
The little one on the shelf back there looks like a little bird with
Right.
a fuzzy head. That has got some seeds in it.
Oh, does
So it
it?
would have been a seed jar for replanting, whatever.
Okay.
The dippers, I had never seen a dipper before I came to this museum.
Well, I don't know that I have.
I found pieces and parts of them in the trash piles that these people left, but I'd never seen a complete one. We've got at least half a dozen here.
At least, well, more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got lots of them, and they're complete. They don't even have
Right.
breaks on the bottom.
So they would have used that for dipping water out or dipping food out of the cookware.
Yeah. Now the little one that you pointed out at the beginning with that looks kind of like a bird, it's about the size of a pie bird. And I was going to say somebody was getting lucky and eating lots of pie in the teepee, but it's a seed carrier.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's human hair
Oh, is
as a
it?
stopper. Yeah.
Oh, okay, as a stopper in the top. Yeah. Yeah, this is just so cool. You've got so many neat pieces. Okay, now you've got this one pot that looks, it's round and has a shaft that comes up that's about 1.5 inches round that's hollow, like for filling the pot. But you've got some round cone-shaped beads or something on there. Do you know what those are?
No, I don't. I don't even know if those two are associated with each other.
Okay, but but that's interesting looking the way that those.
We've had 50 years of people coming through this museum and setting up these displays. So unless there's some documentation that said that those two went together, my
Right.
guess is they put that on there just to add some pop.
Yeah, no, and they look ornamental more than what they
it looks
do
like something
functional.
that they would have worn around their neck.
Wow. It's just amazing looking at these. Oh, there's a cool one. You've got one that looks like a bear, kind of a fat bear, with an open underneath a ceramic handle.
Like a little clay basket almost.
Yeah, it's just got a small opening, but it looks like a bear.
Yeah, some of the Casas Grande where they did that,
And the painting on it's
Figurines.
really cool too.
the tricolors.
This is just amazing, the collection that you've got here. You could look at this for hours, at just the different designs and different things.
Yes, we're always glad to have people who are researching this stuff come. We will let them access our collections if they can prove that they're actually researching something from a university.
Okay.
Same with the arrowheads. We have about 26 more Riker mounts,
Oh, really?
just full of points that
Wow.
were once in displays that were around the museum. They were degrading, the glue was failing and the points were falling off, so we decided to take them out and put them in the right mounting.
Right.
So that we can access them and look at them close up.
Cool. And I really like this one here. This is a canteen. It's got to be a canteen, I would think.
I would have to say that they tied some cords to that and we're carrying it around, and it's a nice way to keep your water.
Yeah,
close to you.
it's a ball that's probably 2 times the size of a softball, and it's got these 2 little knobs with with a bigger area on the top of them, like for wrapping a rawhide around it and carrying it around your neck or on your side. And then it's got an opening in the top that's kind of raised up.
Yeah,
And-
these bigger pots, they're mostly storage jars
Okay.
for water or foodstuffs, grains, soup.
Right.
Just really don't know.
Just amazing. And all the different colors and of clay and different colors of paints.
We are working on getting them all labeled and identified.
Okay.
Again, I'm not the ceramics expert. So when we do get the ceramic experts here, we will try to finish labeling all the rest of these. This is a new display. This was all in storage.
Okay.
Both of these, so we took a lot of the nicer stuff out of storage to get it out here.
Cool.
So we do have an overload.
Okay. Well, and it's
Of
so
pottery.
nicely displayed. I mean, you can see every single piece the way you've got it set in here. And this is just absolutely fantastic. Okay, so you have more to show us, or is this kind of...
That's kind of it for the arrowheads.
Okay, well, I need to get Ann, because
we do
Ann's going to
that.
take us through the Geronimo
Let me-
display.
And let me go grab her again.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Taking my shirt.
This has been just, this museum is so cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things here. They're just precious.
Cowboy room here.
Well, she was going to take us to the Geronimo room, but I'm seeing that we got the cowboy room and we got this room over here.
This is the,
I'll go get her.
yeah, I don't know. This has got the Carrie Tingley Hospital. What's the Veteran Center now?
Uh-huh.
Was the Carrie Tingley Hospital for Children.
Oh.
Who had polio.
Okay,
This was built right around the turn of the century.
okay. Are you an expert in that area too?
I'm not.
Ann is.
Oh, yeah. What are we experting?
Well, we were going to look at the Geronimo room, but I see that we got two other rooms, and he was just telling us this was a polio room or polio hospital.
Carrie Tingley.
Carrie Tingley was a polio hospital
Right.
for kids.
Well, let's go talk about it,
Oh,
because
okay.
I don't know a lot about polio.
Better hitch her up.
Well, there's not much in here about it.
Oh, there's not?
And no, on these leaves is our entire county history.
Okay.
And there's a page or two on Carrie Tingley in here somewhere.
Okay. Do you know what this machine is?
That was a dentist's machine of some sort, but no, I
Okay.
do not know.
Okay. Okay. Well, this has a lot of old medical equipment in it, typewriters.
And these are graduates from Hot Springs High School from 1930 something, and I don't think they
79.
brought them up through the 20s yet.
Okay. You've got some old cameras and some, it looks like court reporter machines and adding machines. And just a basic display of,
And this is kind of our medical. We had Magnolia Ellis, who was a magnetic healer.
a magnetic healer.
Yes. Her building is straight down the street, still has her name on it, but she's long gone, but she would rub you, and it brought people here by the hundreds. And they would go make appointments, and she would go and give them a treatment, and everybody swore by her. Brought lots and lots of people here.
And she treated people with magnets? Is that
No,
what?
her hand, she had
She,
had a magnetic
okay.
something in her hand.
Okay. Wow. And did she use that in conjunction with the hot springs, or?
Yeah, well, now they come take the baths and they go see Magnolia and leave happy.
Wow. That is interesting. And then we have the military room with
Yes.
a monster flag. That flag looks huge.
Yes, that flew over when they dedicated the dam, Elephant Butte Dam.
Oh, okay.
It flew over the ceremony,
Okay.
and
And that was the only time it flew, or?
I imagine it is so enormous. Everybody comes in here and just has a fit because it's so big, and we don't have a place to show it. You know,
Yeah.
as big as it is, so
It
we
is
do the best we
huge.
can.
Wow. It's 8 foot 11 inches by 17 foot, and it was at the dam dedication in 1916. Wow. This is just so cool.
And this is kind of the dam being built.
Okay.
And that was the railroad that ran through Ingle from El Paso to Albuquerque.
Okay.
And the depot was there.
Is the depot still here in town?
No, it was out at Ingle.
Out at Ingle, okay.
Ingle is 17 miles west
Oh,
of here.
Okay.
And no, they've torn all the buildings that had to do with the railroad down.
Okay.
So the railroad still goes there, but
There's no station.
and no station.
Okay. And now we're going to go to the Geronimo room.
Yes.
But before we go to the Geronimo room, I got to have a little bit of backstory on your finding of the mastodon.
Oh, well, I was just out running my dogs one day, and there was this white stuff on top of the ground, and I just kind of, it was a real sandy slope,
Uh-huh.
and I just kind of did this, and more white stuff fell off, and I thought, oh, that's a petrified wood, that's what it looked like.
Uh-huh.
And so I kind of covered it back up and went on, and 2-3 days later, my friend came with me, and we were walking the dogs again, and I said, let me show you this petrified wood that I found over here. So we went over there, and she said, let's dig on this, because it's real sandy. So we started digging, and we came to the teeth, you know.
Uh-huh.
We recognized it was teeth, and we thought, no, this isn't petrified wood. So we went into town to the science teacher at the middle school, and we took him out there, and he said he didn't know what it was. And so he called New Mexico Tech and Socorro. And
Okay.
they sent Dr. Wolberg down, and he came down, and he went out there, and he said, oh, yeah. He said, oh, mastodon skull. But he thought it was just going to be the jaw.
Uh-huh.
And he got so excited because it was the whole
The whole thing.
thing. So they sent a team down here, and the newspapers came, and the TV came, and that's when I was famous for 15 minutes. And they dug it up and took it back up to Socorro because it was just coated in sand, you know,
Uh-huh.
plastered, and chiseled it all out and got it cleaned up. And then we went to work trying to get it back down here, which we had to go through Congress to do
Oh,
it.
geez.
And we finally got it.
Wow. That is such a cool piece.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're in the Geronimo room. Let's talk about Geronimo.
Geronimo was a small man, because people come in here and say he's so little. Well, he was small. He was a very angry man because his wife, mother, and 4 children were killed by Mexicans.
Okay.
And as a result, he hated Mexicans. So he spent most of his life going back and forth across the border getting revenge with the Mexican people. And they were the one that called him Geronimo. His other name is, I can't even begin to pronounce it.
Okay.
And so he after they conquered the Apaches, he was sent to Florida, where they sent all of the Apaches. They wanted to get them as far out of here as they could get them, just like when we sent the guys over from, you know, the ones at Guantanamo,
Uh-huh.
get them as far out of their element. That's what they did to the Apaches, which was a sad thing that they did. And then they sent him back to Oklahoma eventually, and that's where he lived till he died. But he got to go to New York to the World's Fair, and
Didn't he travel? Did he travel with Buffalo Bill?
he might have, but I never remember seeing anything about that.
Okay, I don't remember either. I know that he had a couple of chiefs, and I don't remember which ones they were.
Yeah, well, he was.
But Geronimo's kind of the most famous of them all.
Well, he was never a chief.
Okay.
Geronimo, he was a shaman, but never a chief.
Okay. And so, what artifacts of Geronimo's?
We do not, other than that one picture of him up there.
Okay.
We don't have any of his artifacts. Now, Victorio was the chief of the Apaches in this area.
Okay.
And that is the only kind of picture you will ever see of him, because he didn't want his picture taken, and his headband came off, and it made his hair.
Okay.
But that's the only type of picture. This old Apache chief right over here in this,
Right.
he came back and lived, Doglugi, and lived in Mescalero.
Okay.
And this was his saddle.
Okay.
And these are pictures of Harlan Geronimo, who was supposedly Geronimo's grandson or
Okay.
son. If you have any more questions, I'll try to answer them.
Well, I think we're probably okay with that. Let's go this way, because we have not been to this room yet.
Okay, this is our Hispanic Heritage Room.
Okay.
And most of the ones, the Hispanics were all Catholic.
Okay.
So there is a lot of, you can see a lot of the Catholic influence here, through the dolls and the priest garments and so forth.
Right.
We like to have some of our older Hispanic families put a show here, do a display of their family. This happens to be the Sullivan family,
Okay.
we have lots of Sullivans here. So far, we haven't got anybody else to do that. These are just old artifacts that they used, a cheesemaker, a yoke for oxen, and so forth.
Okay.
And
then,
this is our cowboy room, more hats,
yeah,
in here.
lots of hats in here.
and all kinds of things that they would use on the ranch. All of the brands are local. We took the boards down and took them out to the county fair and asked the ranchers to bring their branding irons.
Oh.
And so they brought them, and you see what we got.
Yeah, you've got a chuck wagon set up here with a couple of Dutch ovens.
Yeah, this was supposedly one that Pancho Villa had used or ate off of or something.
The chuck wagon?
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't remember the exact story. Made 3 trips to Palomas, Mexico, and was used for the trail herding cattle. And I thought it said something in
It
here.
does. It says a cattle importer was buying cattle from Pancho Villa, who was served several meals from this box.
I couldn't.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
As I tell the kids when they come through, they didn't have McDonald's then, so
Oh, no.
you had to take your kid with
Yes.
you. Now, reading brands is a talent in itself, and there's one brand up here. It's the second.
Yep, the second one up there that has a 2, and then there's a 2 on its side, and then there's a P at the end.
Okay.
And I know that one. That's too lazy to pee.
You're a good brand reader.
No, I've been shown that one before.
Okay, because I was.
I've got a friend that's a brand inspector, and so. But yeah, there is an art. You know, you've got the little rocking underneath, so you could have like a rocking R, or a lazy Z, or a lazy 2 is when
Right.
they're on their side, and
You have slashes and dashes, and
yep.
so yeah.
That's the box K.
This
I'm
is a
assuming.
Diamond A.
Yeah, that is box K. Back K, box K backwards.
And
Yep.
this Diamond A is the ranch that Turner owns now.
Oh, okay.
That and this the ladders.
Okay. Wow.
And this is the women's part,
Okay.
a washing machine. And I always try to tell them how they, put water in this and water in this and swish it around and run it through the roller.
wringer.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you've got the older style, the washboard.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is our school, what our school looked like with a little disc that,
Okay.
and some of the things that women would use.
Hot water bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of their pretty dishes. And then there's this rifle that I don't understand about guns, so.
Okay. Well, let's go back on up front here, and we'll finish this up. Do you guys have a website for people?
We are in the process of building a website. I won't go into the long
Okay.
reason as to why we don't have one right now.
That's okay.
But I now have a contact number for you.
Right.
So when we get all of that information up and going,
Okay.
I will let you know.
Okay, and we'll let that go. Now, do you guys have a fee for coming in here, or is it all donations? Or
We do have a fee. It is
$6.
I'll have to look. It's $6 for adults.
Oh.
Or if you're a veteran or ARP, it's $5.
Okay.
We have a family rate of $15. with the mom and the dad, and if they've got some
How
kids.
reasonable to come see all this cool stuff.
Yes, it is very
And the museum
reasonable.
is really easy to find. It's right on the main street in Truth or Consequences. You type in Truth or Consequences Museum, Geronimo will show right up. And so the museum's easy to come by. I need to go check out the hot pools because I haven't done that yet, and that sounds like it's way interesting. But I want to thank all four of you. Debbie for setting it up, Mike for taking us through the geology part, Ann for all of her knowledge, and Jeff for everything that he does with the pottery and the arrowheads. This has been absolutely fascinating. And I always finish out my podcast by saying the world is full of wonder.
Oh,
We need to get out and explore. This museum has so much to see and so much variety. And everybody have an absolutely wonder-filled day.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?